everyone! So today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to make your own DIY bag. So I've made several different bags, and the way I'm going to do this one is a little bit different because I'm going to be putting a zipper on it. The ones that I've already made are pretty big, but the zippers that I own right now are pretty small. So yeah, just so you guys keep that in mind, you don't have to put a zipper, but I'm going to actually be making this one specifically for a gift, and they like having a zipper on it, and I honestly don't usually put zippers on mine, but that's a personal preference. So if you want a zipper, you're going to probably have to make it more like a book bag shaped, whereas if you don't care if you have a zipper, you can just make it whatever size you want. So here are the couple of ones that I have made, which was actually my first one ever. So some things that you might need is like a sewing machine. You don't have to have one, I guess, to do this. You could do it all by hand. I used to before I got my machine. But I find using a machine would be easier if you have the option. Probably want to do a machine since it's going to probably be holding a lot of stuff maybe. So I just feel like machine stitches are a little bit stronger. And then you're going to need your inside material, I guess. So for me, it's going to be this shirt. Yeah. And then you're going to need an outside material, which is going to be like seam for the actual bag, which I chose to be this. So, very pretty, and I really like them a lot. So instead of going to the fabric store, which I guess I totally could have done, I found it cheaper to go to Goodwill or some other store like that, and then get like extra large sizes and just like 2 pieces of clothing that match, kind of. And then don't forget, with your materials, you may or may not want a zipper, some scissors, and thread that matches, or maybe not if you want. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lay out all of the pieces of clothing or things that I want to be using. Mirabelle's just chilling in the shot. That's cool. So I'm going to be taking my medium felt tipped pen, and I'm going to be marking up where I want it to be on the fabric. Since I'm using a zipper, I'm going to be using this as the top seam, like how big it should be. I'm just going to be doing some dots here and there. So my bag's going to end up being pretty small due to this, but it's going to be closer to a book bag size. So one thing I forgot to say when cutting with the material, when I was doing it, don't forget to try to like cut in long strips like this, because you are going to be using this part of the material as the handles for the bag. So you want like pretty long handles, so try not to cut those. Putting this fabric, your patterned fabric, to the side. Now take your inner lining and cut the same like shape or amount that you wanted on here. You're going to also be using some of the fabric here as the straps as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the little strip of the color on here after the bottom part, and it has a really cool, I didn't even mean to do this, it has a really cool stitching here. Just remember that the color at the bottom, like, it's going to look like a lot when you first make it, but since you're making indents on the side, so it can hold a lot more depth, I guess. You're going to take your outer lining with the stuff that you just cut for the color. This part is optional, obviously, but you're going to sew it like wrong side for the outer color, but the correct side for this color, because then you're going to flip it over after you seam it, and it'll be really pretty. So I'm going to head over to the sewing machine to do this for this piece and this piece. But this is what it looks like. So as you can see, there's lots of space right here, and when I flip it over, this part is going to be over here. This is the wrong side out, as you guys can see with the stitching. But yeah, so I'm just going to stitch this up for both pieces. So now that those are all sewn up, this is what they look like. There's this one. So as you can see, we're going to be flipping it over, so then that's what it's going to look like. But first, before we do that, before we iron this down, I'm going to go ahead and make the straps because ironing it down, and you need to also iron the straps down, so that way you can kind of only heat up the iron once. But I'll have to iron this down so it's not like popping out as much, and it'll be easier to align when you are putting the pieces together. But for the straps, you just figure out the length of the bag and how long I guess it is, and like where you want it. So this one's probably, for my mom, is going to be like around here-ish, and so I can just determine how big I want the straps by that. So the bag's going to be a little bit smaller because we're going to sew it here, and then we're also doing some of the ends to give it some depth so you can put in stuff. Like this box cut right here, it adds more depth to it, and so that kind of like cuts into how big the bag is going to be. So just like keep that in mind when you are doing the colors, like how big you want that box cut to be. I'm going to make mine multicolored because it's always what I do. But see, so like I put the outside pattern like on the outside, and then the inside so that way it kind of gives it more, it's not too flashy and you got some like solid colors going on. So yeah, I usually take it from since this is the beautiful cutout, so I take it from the sides, because that's what's going to be the longest here. And you can always like just measure it, I guess, through this way. See if it's long enough, and if not, you can sew two sides of it together. So these are both the correct sides, and I'm going to be facing them in towards each other, both ends here and here, but leave both of these little ends open so that you can turn it inside out and then iron it down. So I plugged the iron in, and so here's the dial, and so I'm gonna turn it up all the way to linen and like even a little bit higher. That way it's just easier when I have to iron everything down. So I've set everything up basically, except kind of those, but I've set everything like the way I want it to be ironed down. So now that those are all ironed and whatnot, I'm going to take my I'm going to take my outer lining and put the correct sides facing each other. So like this, and like this, and then I'm going to sew them together as such, like that. But then, except for obviously the top, so then you can get into the bag itself. So you're just going to stitch all the way around and make sure everything lines up, like especially here. Like with if you're doing the two colors, you want to make sure the two colors add up and like line up correctly. But then for the inside liner, you put the correct sides also facing each other, but then you're going to leave a gap at the top so you can obviously open your bag, but then you're going to keep a little, pretty fair decent side, like this big of a hole, I guess, so I'd say 2 inches, 2.5 inches, because that's how you're flipping the bag inside out. So now, after we finished doing the outer lining and sewing all of that together, and the inner lining, and leaving a gap like this is what I was talking about, leaving a gap like this, that way you can flip it, because that's how we flip the bag, which is this. So you can make this as big or as small as you want. Just remember that the bigger it is, the more depth it's gonna have. So like this has a lot of like depth in it, and considering for this bag it's gonna be like, since it's an already pretty small bag, I'm gonna keep it on the shorter end, but you can make it as big or as small as you want it to be. I will probably only do 2 inches total. So what you do is, after you get this, you're going to pull it so then the material and the fabric like match up. So this seam is going to match with this one, and you can feel it too. And then what I chose to do for this is when I'm actually sewing on top of this, I go back and forth on it a couple times, since like a lot of the weight's going to be on like this part of the bag. So I did it with my outer lining, and now I have to do it again with the inner lining. Now, with these little things, I'm going to be cutting off the tail ends, so don't forget to do that. Awesome! So now for the actual assembly for everything. Okay, so I just finished putting the zipper on. I've been starting to realize how different the zipper makes everything, which is kind of annoying. But, yeah. So I'm going to show you, I guess, what you would theoretically do, but I'm not going to do it because of the zipper. But it's not too big of a difference, but it's a difference of enough. Okay, so normally what you would do is you'd take your straps, both of them, and you put them on the inside of your liner, which is still facing outward. So I'm gonna put that in there like this. So the color is facing outward, right, from the correct side of the lining. And then what you would do, and you do this on both sides, of course. So then after you do that, you would put the correct side out of the actual outside lining, and you'd put it inside of this bag, the liner. You know what I mean? And you'd want everything to line up. Let's just pretend it all does for time's sake. And so this is what it would look like. It would have the two colors, like the outside fabric, facing each other, and then you'd have the liner, which is already flipped as such. And then you'd sew along the top, and the top would look really nice and clean. And if you want, you could do a top stitch around it, but as you guys can see, I wouldn't be confident enough to do that when my stitches look like that. So that's what you would do if you didn't have a zipper. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, instead of just simply sewing the tops of everything together like you would normally without a zipper, what am I going to do? I'm going to turn this on the inside a little bit, like this, and sew everything that way. Now I'm going to flip it inside out through this little hole that I left. Should have left a bigger hole. The zipper is inside out. Oh, why is it inside out? That's what I don't understand. But besides the zipper fail, which was a test, everything else works. So, and the pattern looks nice. But yeah. So that's a mini bag, and I hope you guys like this tutorial. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you thought this was funny that I did the zipper inside out. So like if you like that, all my mistakes and stuff. And if you like the bag, and yeah, so hopefully this helped you guys. Thanks!